sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
All right, so Newcastle United take home the Carabao Cup trophy after beating Liverpool at Wembley. Pretty big upset, right?
I mean, yeah, definitely an upset. Liverpool have been at the top of the table all season, but Newcastle really showed up for this one, and I think the source material we have from The Independent really helps to break it all down. We've got their player ratings, some match highlights, a lot to dive into.
Yeah, 70 years is a long time to wait for a major domestic trophy, so I imagine there was some serious pressure on Newcastle going into this.
Oh, absolutely. And you've got Liverpool, the Premier League leaders. They always come out strong, so the tension must have been unreal.
Okay, so let's jump into the Independent's coverage. They called it a magnificent performance from Newcastle, saying they deservedly beat Liverpool. But what specifically made it so dominant?
It's really all about the midfield. Liverpool is known for their super dynamic play, but Newcastle shut them down completely. Joelinton and Tonali were crucial to that. They both got 7s from The Independent.
I remember those names from the ratings.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did The Independent have to say about them?
Well, they said Joelinton was like Newcastle's heartbeat, just driving the team forward constantly. And then Tonali was electric, just creating chances and disrupting Liverpool's flow every time they tried to get something going.
It's one thing to read, Newcastle dominated, but to hear about how these guys controlled the game really brings it to life.
Exactly. And you can't forget about Dan Burn. I mean, the guy's 32 years old, scores his first goal at Wembley. What a story.
Yeah, the hometown hero. That's incredible. The Independent even suggested he might get an England debut at this point in his career.
It just goes to show how well he played. I mean, the Independent was praising his defense, which you expect, but they were also impressed with how much of an impact he had on attacking set pieces, too.
And, of course, we have to talk about Alexander Isak. The guy was unstoppable. His goal was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, and he could have had a hat trick.
Yeah, he really kept Liverpool's defense on their toes. The Independent gave him an 8 and pointed out that he actually has a pretty good track record against Van Dijk, who is, supposed to be one of the best defenders in the world.
It's kind of wild that he seems to have Van Dijk's number like that.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Liverpool for a second, because honestly, they had a pretty rough game, especially Mo Salah.
Yeah, it was a bit of a shocker to see them play like that. Their ratings from The Independent were low across the board, but Salah's rating was a 2. Can you believe that?
A 2 that is rough for a player like him would happen.
Honestly, he was barely in the match. The Independent even said he barely saw the ball. Newcastle's defense just completely shut him down.
Wow. It's like they were playing a different team than we're used to seeing. And that brings up a point that The Independent mentioned. This could be Salah's last cup final with Liverpool.
It's true, and it makes you wonder what this performance means for his legacy, especially with his recent struggles. Is this going to be the thing people will remember, or will they focus on the rest of his incredible time with the club?
It's a big question. And before we get too deep into that, I think we need to take a closer look at exactly how Newcastle pulled off this win.
Definitely. Let's talk tactics. To really understand this win, I think you have to look at Newcastle's manager, Eddie Howe. He had them ready for this match.
Yeah, they played with so much, purpose. They felt like they had an answer for everything Liverpool tried.
Exactly. And, The Independent didn't go too deep into Howe's tactics, but they did talk about Newcastle's control of the midfield, which tells us that Howe probably had a plan to really disrupt Liverpool's usual style.
Right, because Liverpool thrives on that fast-paced possession game.
Exactly. And Newcastle didn't let them have it. They closed down space, tackled, hard-forced those mistakes,
So it was more than just winning individual battles. It was about controlling how the whole game was played.
Absolutely. Howe knew exactly how to dismantle Liverpool's attack, and he did it perfectly.
And it wasn't just tactics either, right? The Newcastle players were hungry for this win. Guys like Dan Burn, who you wouldn't necessarily expect to score the winning goal in a cup final. I mean, he stepped up big time.
It was a real team effort, but when you think about what Howe has done with this squad, it's amazing. A few years ago, they were fighting relegation, and now they're winning trophies.
Okay.
It says a lot about him as a manager.
And you can't forget the fans. They created an incredible atmosphere at Wembley. Even watching it on TV, you could feel their energy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That energy definitely fed into the team's performance. It's like having a 12th man out there,
The power of a dedicated fan base, right? And speaking of battles, this wasn't just a physical match. It was a tactical chess match between Eddie Howe and Liverpool's manager, Arne Slot.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where things get really interesting. I mean, on paper, you'd think Slot would have the advantage tactically. He's won titles in multiple countries. He's known for his innovative approach. you know.
But it seemed like Howe outmaneuvered him at every turn. How did he do that?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. The Independent focused on the outcome, not so much the nitty-gritty of the tactics, but based on what we saw, it's clear that Howe came in with a plan to disrupt Liverpool's flow and just dictate the pace of the game.
So he basically neutralized Liverpool's strengths and took advantage of their weaknesses, and he did it with a team that, on paper, you wouldn't think could match up to Liverpool's talent.
Precisely, and that's what makes this win so impressive. It shows that Howe's a top-tier tactician. He can outsmart the best of them.
So does this mean that Howe's a better manager than Slot?
Well, you can't really judge that based on one match, can you? But it definitely shows that Howe is a force to be reckoned with. He's not afraid to shake things up and try new things, and it clearly works.
So this wasn't just a match between two teams. It was a battle of minds, and Howe came out on top.
And this win could have a ripple effect, on both Newcastle and Liverpool. I mean, it makes you wonder what the long-term impact of this match will be.
It's a great question, but before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's take a moment to appreciate some of those key moments from the match. The goals, the saves of the performances that made it so memorable.
Absolutely. Those are the moments that really stick with you.
All right, so let's talk about some of those, the ones that really stuck with you, like Dan Burn's goal. What a scene. The local lad scoring the winning goal at Wembley.
Yeah, it was picture perfect. I mean, that set piece was executed flawlessly, and it really shows you how well Newcastle exploited Liverpool's weakness when it comes to defending those aerial balls,
They knew exactly where to hit them. And speaking of hitting them where it hurts, Alexander Isak's goal was something else. I mean, that strike was unstoppable.
Oh, yeah, that was pure skill. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. His track record against Van Dijk. He makes it look easy, but it's not luck. He created that chance through sheer talent and determination.
It really makes you wonder what he's going to do next. And then there's Nick Pope in goal for Newcastle.
Yeah.
The guy was a wall back there.
He was absolutely crucial to their win. The Independent gave him a 7 and praised his control of the penalty area and those clutch saves he made at just the right moments.
It's those moments of individual brilliance combined with a really solid team effort that won them the day. It really makes you think, what does this win mean for Newcastle moving forward? They've tasted success now. Could this be a turning point for the club?
It's a huge confidence boost, for sure. For the players, the fans, everyone, this trophy could be a sign that they're back as a real contender in English football.
It's exciting to imagine what they could achieve. And how about Liverpool? How do you think they'll respond to this loss?
Well, they're still top of the Premier League table. They've got a team full of amazing players, but this loss will sting. It'll be interesting to see how they bounce back from it.
It definitely has a whole new dimension to the title race. Newcastle have shown that they're a real threat, which just makes things more unpredictable.
Yeah.
This Carabao Cup finals opened up so many possibilities for both clubs.
And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting, right? It's not just about breaking down one match. It's about looking at the bigger picture, asking those tough questions, and seeing where things go from here. This final had it all, the highs for Newcastle, the lows for Liverpool.
It was a classic underdog story. Proof that anything is possible in football when you've got the heart, the determination, and maybe a little bit of luck on your side.
We've covered a lot in this deep dive, haven't we? The brilliance of Eddie Howe, the breakout performances from guys like Dan Burn and Alexander Isak, and even a glimpse of vulnerability from a powerhouse like Liverpool. It all makes you wonder, what will this match ultimately mean for both clubs? Will Newcastle use this momentum to become a dominant force in English football? Will Liverpool learn from this loss and come back even stronger?
I guess we'll have to wait and see, but one thing's for sure, this is just the beginning. We'll be watching closely as this story unfolds, and we'll be back to break it all down with you again. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Carabao Cup final.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till